Alright, the difference between real and nominal GDP. So nominal GDP is the calculation of the gross domestic product using the prices and production for whatever year is being under consideration. So for example, if you're doing the nominal GDP for 1950, the nominal GDP would use the 1950 prices and also the 1950 levels of production. That number is useful for people during 1950. So think about it. When are 1950 prices useful? Well, obviously if you lived during 1950, that's when those prices are relevant and useful to you. Fast forward to 2018. Nominal numbers from 1950 are no longer relevant to you because we know that since there's been a lot of inflation since 1950, a 1950 dollar is not the same as a 2018 dollar, even though it's called a dollar. Just like a phone today, a smartphone today, is not the same as a phone from 20 years ago. So, how do economists get around this problem? And the way they get around this problem is they create what's called real GDP. And we'll see that going on in this course, that any real variable in economics has been corrected for inflation. So the way that they do real GDP and the way that they get around the inflation problem is that they choose a year and they make that year the base, and then for every single year that they calculate real GDP, they're using the base year prices. So the prices forever are fixed to the base year. So if 2010 is the base year, and a price of a car in 2010 is $25,000, then every year for the average price of the car, it stays fixed at $25,000. So there's no inflation at all anymore because prices aren't allowed to move or change. So if inflation's the problem, you get rid of the inflation by not allowing it to happen, and you do that by choosing a base year. You fix prices to that base year, and then every GDP calculation that you use will use those base year prices, but whatever year's quantity of production. So for example, if the base year is 2010 and you're doing the GDP for 2018, it would be 2010 prices, but it would be the production from 2018. So you use the base year prices, but whatever year that's under consideration, the production. So the only thing that can change real GDP would be changes in production of goods and services, and that's what we're really trying to measure. Nominal GDP can change for two reasons. It can change for the fact that economies can change how much they make, so how much they produce or the quantity, but it can also change because they print money and there's inflation. So the inflation skews the nominal, so to get around that, we use the real, and then the only thing that changes real would be the amount of production in the overall economy. One last thing, for the base year, the nominal and real GDP would be the same because it would use the same prices. So if the base year is 2010, then the nominal GDP uses 2010 prices and the real GDP also uses 2010. The base year's calculation for GDP is the only time where nominal and real GDP would be the same.